AI and business. Hey everyone, and welcome back. I'm Amari, your Perpetual Tech Noob, learning more with you. Today, I want to talk to you about AI. Now, in an attempt to keep this video short, I'll break up my thoughts into a few separate videos. I'll begin this series with my views on AI and business in today's video. In my normal fashion, to help those of us with short attention spans, I'll start with my summation. The fact is, as faulty as AI is currently, there is no stopping its integration. The goal of all entrepreneurs, and thus all businesses, is to maximize profits. Since a large amount of return cash flow must be directed towards employees, most, if not all, businesses will substitute as much of the human resource with automation as possible. Now, with that out of the way, let me dig a little deeper into my synopsis. Since the beginning of humanity, we've always wanted more. More time in the day for both productivity and leisure. More resources, especially in the form of food, whether we're talking about crops or livestock. More wealth in the form of valuable, tangible assets. The issue has always been that these things are limited, if not downright rare. There's only so much time in a particular day for work and play, and there's only so much time in a person's life. There's only so much available land space on this planet that can be used for housing and production. There's only so much animals that we can tame and domesticate for food. There is only so much rare and valuable minerals like gold, silver, and platinum that we can gather by sifting through the earth. The humane factor. With all that being said, we humans still can't curtail our greed. Even more so for the most ambitious of us, those we call rulers and entrepreneurs. These are the people with the greatest aspirations and motivation to gather the greatest amount of resources. Like I stated earlier though, there's only a set amount of time in a day, and there's only a set amount of work that can be done with our two hands. For this reason, those of us with greater ambitions must create and gather systems and workers to increase the capabilities and efficiency of the work necessary to achieve their objectives. Now, those most ambitious folks will need to have assets on hand to pay for the time, expertise, and toil of these workers, their newfound employees. Unless, of course, they have the means to force this labor upon them. Slavery is a concept that's almost as old as human thought. If there's something that someone feels needs to be done and they recognize that they cannot, or would rather not, do it themselves, it's a natural sentiment to want to get others to do it for them. People have captured and trained animals to aid in their production of crops and the hunting of other animals, with very little to compensate for their work and loss of freedom. Of course, it only took a little time to realize that more can be accomplished with more intelligent beings. The more greedy, ambitious, and oftentimes lazy folks started to concoct reasonings and schemes to rob other humans of their freedom for the sake of their own ambitions. Now, to pull off something like this, you'll need force of both manpower and weaponry. Like every other living being, people are not too fond of having our freedom of liberty stripped from us. All beings would fight back or at least attempt to escape this captivity of servitude. No living being wants to have their life in the hands of another, so one will have to convince them that this is the only way to, in fact, stay alive. That being said, a person will have to convince others to help and or gain enough deadly force to subject someone else to their will. Devastating weaponry must be created, and people who can be convinced to deny their own humane nature and the humanity of others must be gathered and employed to keep the newly enslaved people in a subservient position. I think I already traveled far enough into the weeds on the creation of the concept of forcing others to work towards one's ambitions for this particular topic, so I'll end it by stating that slavery is now made illegal in most countries, in most cases, around the world. For the sake of seeking to remain humane, the most ambitious of us are basically forced to create better systems and less hostile persuasive tactics to actualize their goals. Systems for someone's better world. Systems are an outline of processes and workflows used to streamline and continually create a particular result or product. In other words, they are designed to automate an outcome. When you couple automation with power from non-living forces, like electricity or burning fuel, you now have a system where it would be hard to argue its inhumanity. These systems can be even more efficient since they don't have to depend on the health and well-being of a living worker. All that will be needed is the provision of energy, like wind, flowing water, flammable fuels, electricity, etc., and the maintenance of the physical components. Since electricity is the most cleanest, efficient, and versatile of energy sources, it's no wonder why it's the most utilized, the most invested in, and it has had the most innovative focus for the last few hundred years, mostly in the aspiration of creating highly efficient systems to help us automate production. Now remember, entrepreneurs, and thus businesses, have long wanted a workforce that can work around the clock. A workforce that can't make any demands or complaints that will have the owner and business seem less humane, since that tarnished reputation will hinder sales of the final product to the consumer, which will no doubt be other humans. With the creation of computer chips making the use of electrical systems even more efficient, that dream has basically become a reality. Getting to AI, finally. Ever since the creation of computer chips, we've been living in a world moved by artificial intelligence. These chips are built with a logical yes, no, on-off process embedded within them. We just have to add systematic logic for the particular task we wish to replicate. With this, we've been able to build programs for calculators and computers. We've been able to produce programs for charging batteries and keeping nuclear fission reactors cool enough to avoid explosions. We've made systems that can autocomplete and autocorrect a word you're typing, as well as search the entire network of computers for a word or phrase you're researching. We've reached an era where the chips are small enough to fit a drastic amount within a small space, which leads to an astounding amount of data that can be stored within close proximity to the chips used to compute, leading to a dramatic efficiency rating. With today's capabilities, computers can compute more data faster than ever before, and efficiency so high that people can be convinced that this computational speed can be even more efficient than that of a human's brain, and entrepreneurs are now salivating. We have long been told and taught that the human brain is just a more advanced computer. We have seen robotics built that have indeed replaced people in manufacturing industries. Many of us have witnessed the progress that visual recognition software has made in the last decade or two. Now ask yourself, why wouldn't the business owners rejoice at the thought of the integration of all these systems within their businesses? Why wouldn't they clamor at the prospect of getting rid of all these pesky workers who need food and sleep and motivation and, worst of all, pay? If by some stroke of logic, we were able to build a humanoid robot that can do all the things all current workers can do with only a 2-hour recharge and some maintenance every couple of months, the long-held wish of a humane slavery would finally be achieved. I mean, we won't be able to find a sane set of people who would argue for the rights of plastic, glass, metal, and electricity. At most, the only argument would be about a human's right to have a living wage being subverted, and any employer can argue that it's not their responsibility to provide a job for your Uncle Harold. With all that being said, let me remind you of our greed and the self-centeredness inherent in all humans. Our lack of what we call our humanity. When self-serve kiosks were being implemented in our favorite stores, was there anyone other than the soon-to-be laid-off workers making a fuss? Even with the prospect of being accused of shoplifting because of the buggy programming and the fact that we were now unpaid workers at that store, no one cared. Some people even ran to the new machines in the hopes of no longer having to deal with another person. All in all, we kept shopping. How about when the production line workers of the automobile factories were replaced with those huge mechanical arms? Did we group together to boycott those companies for the sake of the families of those now obsolete workers? In fact, we thought those mechanical marvels looked cool, and we ran to the auto dealer to buy a new car with the promise that it will now be cheaper to create, and thus, cheaper to purchase. If I notice this, you best believe that these companies notice as well. What with all the extensive research they paid big money for to figure out exactly how to squeeze another buck out of your tight pockets. If I can't blame you for wanting to save your precious time and dollars, I dare say that we can't blame these entrepreneurs for wanting to do the same. I mean, we're all just human. I'll leave it there for today. Still, wishing you the best. Until next time. If you appreciate what we're doing over here, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Alright, y'all. Till next time, you know how it goes. Keep building.